if I told you, what if I told you was actually a line never used in the Matrix film, and actually no matter how much we try and find it, you will never find it at all. I'm Dingo Cannon, and this is Standing Ground, when these phenomena and more we're going to explore right here, called the Mandela Effect. Now, the Mandela Effect got its name from, of course, Nelson Mandela, who a lot of people believe, and they actually believed this when they saw it on the news, that Nelson Mandela died in jail in July 23, 1991. But in fact, in this reality, he actually got out of jail and he actually died December 5th, 2013. Not only did he get out, but he got out and became the president of South Africa and went on to do some amazing things. So how can a collective from around the world remember one thing, but in reality is another thing? How can a man die in jail, but then not die in jail? So let's explore this. And they've called it the Mandela Effect after him. Now there is countless and many examples of the Mandela Effect. I'm just going to look at a few really popular ones and talk about a few that actually I've come up with myself through the time. So one of the biggest famous lines in the world of movies is Star Wars, where Darth Vader is battling Luke and he says, "Luke, I am your father." One of the most iconic lines in cinema history. And in fact, James Earl Jones, who played Darth Vader, is actually on record being on Good Morning America, breakfast shows, talk shows, and actually reliving that line, "Luke, I am your father." Mark Hamill too, who's actually been on shows and he's said the same line. But now if you go back to Star Wars, that line was never said at all, and actually what Darth Vader says was,
"No, I am your father."
"No, I am your father." I mean, that actually just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't seem that that was the line. I mean, what do you remember? I definitely remember he said, "Luke, I am your father." So what's happened? Has a shift in the paradox has changed? Has there been a time traveler like Marty McFly that's gone back in time and changed reality just slightly and caused this ripple effect or the butterfly effect? Let me give you another example from another movie, of course, because Hollywood came from the word Hollywood, which is the magic wand that Merlin used to use his magic from. So another example in movies is Forrest Gump, and the famous line when Tom Hanks is sitting on the park bench and he's opened up his box of chocolates, and what does he say? He says, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You will never know what you're going to get." I mean, that's what I remember, right? Is that what you remember? But in fact, he didn't say that at all. And in fact, he said,
"My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get."
"Life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." I mean, he says was, that's a past tense. I mean, that doesn't make sense at all because you're living in the present. It's not a scene that he died on and he's looking back on his life. So to me, that's a huge one. So another one definitely for me, this to me is the kicker. This the one sealed it for me, and that's Scary Movie. You remember the Scary Movies when they did different horror movies, famous horror movies, and the most famous they used was from Sixth Sense, when the boy goes, "I see dead people. I see dead people." And he's talking to Bruce Willis, who, spoiler alert, is actually dead in the movie, and he's the only one that can see him. But in the of that movie, there's an actor. He's a black comedian, and he holds up the sheets and he says, "I see white people." But that would be funny, right? It's a piss out of different horror movies, and that's what everyone remembers. But he actually doesn't say that at all. He actually says, "I see dead people. I see dead people." Now, how would that be funny? That's the exact line they used in the movie. That wouldn't be funny at all, but everyone remembers, "I see white people." I mean, what happened? What really happened? Let me give you another example, and this is a huge one. This one, you can really investigate yourself. It's from the Bible, Isaiah 11:16. And it talks about, before I give the spoiler, just think about this yourself, what I'm about to say. There's something animal laying down with lambs. Now, do you remember? I mean, it's the most iconic part in the Bible, and there's probably been hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of paintings and drawings with this scene. When lions lay down with lambs. And I remember seeing this picture everywhere. In church halls, just everywhere you go. But in fact, there's no lion at all. The lion disappeared. There is no Lion King. And in fact, now, it's the wolf laying down with lambs. I mean, are you kidding me? Who remembers wolf? I don't remember ever seeing a painting of a wolf laying down with lambs. But in fact, if you actually Google search that, you actually will see the wolf lying down with lambs. So all these people that have been drawing from Isaiah from the Bible have been drawing lions with lambs. There is no passage that it says at all. Let's move on. Snow White. Now, who didn't remember Snow White growing up? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? That's what you remember, right? Exactly. But in fact, no. The Queen did not say that at all. In fact, now the reality is magic mirror on the wall.
Magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?
Famed is thy beauty, Majesty.
Who is the fairest one of them all? Magic mirror? No, she never said magic mirror. She said mirror, mirror. We all remember that. And you can go to school plays, you can have a look on the internet, people doing parodies again, and people reliving that famous scene. And we all remember mirror, mirror. Not magic mirror on the wall. That just doesn't sound right. Field of Dreams, the most famous baseball movie. Actually, maybe the movie that got me into baseball when I was a kid. Where Kevin Costner is out in his cornfield and he hears this voice in his head, and the voice says, "If you build it, they will come." Right? If you build it, they will come. I mean, that's what was said. And then you see he builds the baseball field, and then everyone comes from all around just to see these great players play. But now, if you go back now, that memory of if you build it, they will come is shattered, because now they're saying, if you build it, he will come. If you build it, he will come. I mean, who's he? I mean, there were many of the dead baseball players that came, and then many people came from around the place to see this amazing baseball field in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it really just doesn't make sense. I mean, the list can go on, and you've probably heard some of these before, but I really am trying to get my head around this Mandela Effect and how it's affecting cinema. Let me give you another example. Roger Moore's famous movie Moonraker and James Bond 007, iconic film. Now remember the villain in the movie Jaws? Well, in one of the last scenes in Jaws, he gets off the train and he sees this young girl, and he looks down, and it's a scary scene because Jaws is a scary guy, and he's got that metal teeth. Remember those famous metal teeth that Jaws has? And he looks down at it, shining those pearly metal teeth. And the girl with glasses just looks up at him and smiles, and she's got braces. And that's sort of funny, and they just go off in the end scene. But in fact now, if you go back, she doesn't have braces at all, just normal teeth. And that doesn't make any sense at all. How does she have normal teeth? It makes no connection to the movie. It's just ridiculous, and it's blowing my mind. So it seems that there is some little shift, the butterfly effect, the Mandela effect, call it what you will, but someone is changing time, it would seem. I mean, when I was a kid, well, not a kid, in my 20s, and I remember parking my car right next to my building, because living in Sydney, there's no parking, you've got a street park. And I remember I had to get up really early in the morning to get to work, and parking was a nightmare. It was first in, best dressed. So I got this really beautiful park. I was like George Costanza. I thought I was really good. It was fantastic parking right in front of my building. And I even said to myself, I said, Dingo, you've got great parking. And so in the morning when you wake up, you just come down, your car's in front of you, you don't have to walk, and you just get off to work. Well, that's why I specifically remember it. But when I came down in the morning, my car was gone. And I panicked. My heart, you know that feeling when your heart just sinks. I thought someone had stolen my car. And in Sydney, actually, that's not uncommon right in the city. But I club locked my car. You club locked the wheel. And I was just like in panic. I thought, oh no, why is someone stealing my car? I was 100% certain, 100% certain I parked my car in front of my apartment. So I decided, I just ran around the corner where other cars are parked, or if you don't have the great parking, that's where you'd be parking. And I ran down maybe for 50 meters and I found my car. Club locked on, parallel parked, right on the side of the street. And I thought, no way, I didn't park here. I'm not losing my mind. No one ever touched my car too. I was the only one with the keys. So how did my car get from the front of my apartment to way down the street with a club lock still on? Now this is really one of the times where I actually looked up into the sky and I actually talked. I go, are you kidding me? Is this a joke? Is someone playing a joke on me? Because I also, at that time in Sydney, one of the first movies, not one off, the first movie that was made at Fox Movie Studios was Dark City. And that whole, the premise of Dark City was that there's these watchers and they're watching the Earth. Well, it's particularly just set in one city, but that's all there was. And actually it was like a flat Earth that actually outside the city limits was nothing. But they were trying to stop people knowing that there was nothing outside the city. And that they could change time and just go back a little bit and just change one little aspect of the day so time would shift. And that the world, which was just a city in the middle of nowhere, could just continue on. And then when people woke up from their sleep, they weren't aware that slight variations of things had changed in their life. But there was one man that realized that his life had changed a little bit and things weren't just right. And then he goes and investigates about why is the world changing. So I had this clear in my mind and I thought very so much this was Dark City-esque type thing. My car had moved, but I didn't move it. So there it is, the Mandela Effect. I mean, what do you think? From the examples that I've shown, do you remember any of these? Are they clear in your head, which was said in the movies? I mean, there's many, many more, and I'll continue to do more research and come up with so many more Mandela Effects examples. So remember, keep your mind open, and the future is an idea. Imagine it.